Good day to you all. My name is Dev Kumar Palmer. I'm going to be your host and moderator for the day. Welcome to the Africa Football Business Show, brought to you by the Football Foundation for Africa in collaboration with Sports Legal. You can see at the bottom of our screen, or you will be able to see very shortly, our partners, OTB Africa, Palmer's, CBON Leadership Forum, and Unicaf. Now, the topic for today is dispute resolution, and I am joined by two wonderful guests who will be able to add great value with their experience within the world of dispute resolution in football. We have with us today Asta Mohammed Saleh, who is the legal director of CAF, and we also have Francesco Macri, who is a CAS arbitrator and an Italian sports lawyer. I am guided to invite both of you to introduce yourselves and please give us a brief bio about your experience in the sector, and maybe we can start with ladies first. Atfa, if you could briefly introduce yourself to the audience.
Thank you, Deb. Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here today and discuss about this excellent subject. I'm Ashta Mohammed Saleh. I'm the Director of Legal Affairs and Compliance in the African Confederation of Football. I am from Chad. I have been working actually in CAF in 2006. I started, my first job was in CAF. And then I went to FIFA, to Switzerland. And then I left Switzerland back to Chad, where I have worked as a head of legal department in the company in charge of water in Chad. And then I have had the privilege to be constitutional counselor in Chad, and then back to sport in African Confederation of Football in June 2018 as the Director of Legal Affairs. And then further in 2019, I had the chance to have also the compliance division that has been merged with the legal affairs. So this is how we are now. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Asta. And it's great to have you here today. And in addition to your good self, we're also joined here by Avvocato Francesco Macri from Italy. Francesco, it's great to have you here and to see you again. If you could kindly introduce yourself to the audience.
Thank you, Dave. So your Italian is very good, fantastic. So as you said, I am a lawyer, and I'm based in Italy, between Piacenza and Milan, and so in the north of Italy. And of course, I'm involved in sports law, and on the other side, my field of practice is labor and employment law, most of all. And I advise, I'm involved in sports law, I mean, since 1995, more or less. And previously, I advised the Italian Football Players Association, so the union of football players in Italy. And since 2003, I am an arbitrator at the panels in Lega Serie A and Lega Serie B in Italy. And since 2014, I'm honored to be a CAS arbitrator, to be appointed as a CAS arbitrator, and included, of course, as you might imagine, in a football list. I lecture in sometimes at ISDE, as they know, and in SUPSI, that is the Italian university in Switzerland, and particularly about it's with a master in leisure and management. So that's all, and of course, thank you very much for this invitation. I'm very honored. I hope to be of any help and contribute to the discussion. So maybe it's an interesting night. So thank you.
I've got no doubt it will be an interesting night, and we've got quite a lot of things to unpick during this discussion. I hope that we're going to be able to discuss everything we want within the time that is allotted to us. But I have been told that there are concerns of putting 3 lawyers onto a screen and still managing to keep with time. So we'll do what we can between us. Now, of course, the topic of discussion is dispute resolution within sports. And as many people will know, the pinnacle, if one can put it that way, of dispute resolution in sports is CAS, is the Court of Arbitration for Sport. Now, the Court of Arbitration for Sport was ideated by Juan Antonio Samaranch in 1981, and Kepa Mbaye was actually put together as the chair of the Working Party in 1983 in order to form the first set of statutes for the Court of Arbitration for Sport. It was formally enacted on the 30th of June 1984. So the court has only been around for the last generation in reality. But in that time, it has had an accelerated rise in terms of prominence and pertinence within the sporting sector. Now, sports disputes, however, have been taking place for a longer period than that. They've been around for a lot longer than CAS has been in existence. And they've got differing levels of strength, differing levels of pertinence, and different natures depending on which countries or jurisdictions they appear in. Now, CAS requires the use of special arbitrators. And Francesco, if you wouldn't mind kicking us off, many of our viewers will have had some exposure to CAS, or that they will have had some understanding of CAS. But if you could kindly provide us with a general overview of the different kinds of situations that you deal with at CAS, I think it would be very helpful.
Okay, thank you. So, as you said, CAS is shows an increasing numbers of dispute resolution and disputes, but especially during this, 10 years more or less. Nowadays we have more or less 600 of procedures during a year, so it's quite a large number of proceedings, and the 60, more or less, the 60% of the disputes are football related. So it's another quite large number of disputes. And what can you bring before CAS? We could start from disciplinary matters, maybe, or what we call pecuniary matters. So starting from every dispute that can be between a players and the club, or between a player and a federation or an association as well, or between federation and between federation themselves. The disputes could be of a very large number of matters, starting from the basic, so maybe the salary, payment of salary, or non-payment of salary, and also going to, what I think it's the further extension of disputes, of matters that we find at CAS. So I'm talking about denial of justice. So this is a new field when you ask for something when you ask for the grounds of a motivation, or for the grounds of a decision to maybe FIFA Ethics Committee, or to another committee of the association, of the federation, and they don't answer you, or whenever you think you have the right to have some kind of decision, and this is not what you are expected for. So this is what we call it in a nutshell, the denial of justice. I think that of course we have free decision. We have free division, so that I think everyone knows about that. We have the ordinary division, the appeal division, and the anti-doping division. The anti-doping division was recently formed in 2019, 2018. I don't remember well, sorry about that, but with 2019, I'm quite sure. And as you know, the arbitrators are listed as general arbitrator and arbitrator in football list.
Yeah.
And after the introduction of the doping division, we have also the arbitrators only for doping division. That is quite. This is, I think, because ICAS wanted to create a list of arbitrators specialized exactly in doping. So that is I think that the reason why it was create this list.
And you mentioned quite a. Oh, please forgive me, Mr.
No, it's okay. No, but I was ending. So this is basically the CAS. So what we call CAS. So.
Oh, fantastic, and that's a very helpful overview. And I'm going to start this discussion really with the end point of most of the discussions that I've been involved in relation to sports dispute resolution within the continent of Africa. And after that, we're just going to come to you on that point. But I've been very honored to be involved in a number of discussions, panels, webinars, and so forth in relation to what the objectives of developing sports dispute resolution mechanisms in Africa should look like. And the end point tends to be we want a CAS in Africa. Now, whilst I'm not inclined to disagree with this as a principle, I think it's important for there to be more education and understanding of the capacity that has already been built within the continent. And once there's a full appreciation of the measures that are already in place, we can start thinking about development and next steps. Now, Ajta, we spoke just now about the incorporation of CAS only 35, 36 years ago. But Francesco Macri also mentioned just now that over 60% of the matters at CAS are to do with football. So CAS increased its sphere of influence within the sports sector when FIFA incorporated CAS into its statutes. Maybe when you were there working at FIFA, I'm not sure if the times worked out. But how have you found it, only coming into CAS in the last couple of years and working in the legal department there? What challenges have you found whilst working at CAF with regards to legal dispute resolution mechanisms that are in place, either continent-wide or within the member associations themselves?
Thank you, Dev. So I didn't mention before, but I was in FIFA. I was working for the player status department. So I was basically preparing the cases, the DRC cases or the player status committee cases submitted to the judges, writing the decision and notifying to the parties. So this is in the middle of the subject. From FIFA to CAF, when I joined CAF, there was no legal affairs division. So we created the legal affairs division when I arrived, as I said earlier. So the major challenge that I had at the time was that the understaffing first, because at this time there were a disciplinary department that was handling all the disciplinary cases. At this time, there were only one person in charge of the disciplinary cases. So when I joined, I was the director, and she was a coordinator. Actually, the head was in maternity leave. So biggest challenge that we had to face is this understaffing, because as you know, the matches are played, people are signing contracts, so the work has to go on, but you are two for a work of 10 people. This was the first major problem. And in 2018, when I started the 5th June 2018, and there were this matter of the Ghanaian referees, to remember that. So the investigation video was released the 6th of June. So I started one day before the release of the video. So we started directly to investigate the matters, and it was a really difficult time for us.
It was a nice welcome, I can imagine.
Yes. So from the beginning, it was quite challenging. We had also the cases related to the AFCON, so that we had so many cases in TAS, and I think people were just ready, were very ready to go to TAS. To show you the difference, before 2018, there were one case appeal at CAS for CAF, one case every 2 years. And from 2018 to 2019, out of 2019, we had 18 cases. You see the difference?
A sharp increase.
Yes, it was really, even the people inside CAF couldn't understand. So we had, I don't know if people were aware suddenly of bill in front of CAF, and we had so different cases we had almost every kind of cases CAS, and so this was one of the challenges. And of course, being a new division within an institution, it was necessary to delimitate exactly the scope of work of the division, because everything is legal. There is a legal aspect of everything, so it was overwhelming at some point that we had to deal with everything. So we had to stop and start again. It's an ongoing process until now. I think it's a challenge of every legal department in any institution. Concerning the member association, we identified. You imagine if in CAF there were no legal division, that in the MA certainly there would not be many. So first of all, we contacted the MAs, and we identified, and we invited them to have one person in charge of the legal affairs, who communicated to us. We had taken contact with a few of them. There are very good legal officers actually, and we started working with them. We have organized already workshops with them. I think I'm really with you, Dev, that we need, the education is the first thing that we need to do. Education on legal aspect, the importance of legal, what is legal, because we're in sports, so people tend to think that, okay, why complicate things? We can do it this way or that way. But now we don't have the choice. With globalization, we have to be really, for African, for our MAs, we are working together right now, and we have actually, we are building a good relationship with all of them, and I think that they're trusting us more and more. So yeah.
I mean, it's interesting that you mentioned several points there that I'd quite like to unpick actually, but you spoke about the work that CAF is doing with regards to workshops and trying to assist the member associations to get in line with their own governance and compliance thereof. Have you found generally that there has been quite a good appetite from the member associations to learn about sports law and dispute resolution mechanisms, or do you find that there's still quite a big difference between the member associations with regards to who would be more interested in the legal side and those that are focused on other things, let's say?
In theory, I think that we noticed that really everyone is very keen to learn, that when we organize the workshop, almost all of them are present unless there is a problem. When we communicate with them, they are very reactive. So definitely there is a need to learn more and to understand more. There is something that is general, I think it's everywhere, is that people tend to contest decisions. So they like always to say that it's not right and try, it's the sports side where everyone wants to win, actually. So this is, I think, one of the things. Otherwise, in the educational part, really, we saw that everyone is really ready to participate. And these workshops that we're doing now, we are trying to get something really participative, that the legal officers themselves will provide us with subjects they want to discuss, and they will be also presenting. We want to see what are the challenges of everyone, and we want to create something, for everyone to feel good. And if you want to consult the others, to maybe you see what is happening in other places, and it can inspire you.
I think it's almost perfectly leading me on to my next point, Atsa, and it's a question that I'm going to put to Francesco first, and then I'll invite you as well, Atsa, to give your views on it. So you spoke about the sharp increase of cases going to CAS from Africa, and you've also mentioned now that you're inviting persons to give their views and what they would like to learn about more in the workshop. So clearly there does appear to be an increased appetite for consumption of this kind of information and this kind of knowledge. However, when cases are being taken to CAS, and Francesco, I'll put this to you, there tends to be a division generally in the representation of African claimants. I think you'll agree that the larger or the more affluent African stakeholders tend to hire or tend to lean towards the European sports lawyers, whereas others either represent themselves or would hire local lawyers who may not always necessarily be qualified or experienced within sports law. What advantages or disadvantages from both approaches would you say that this brings from your perspective as an arbitrator, Francesco?
Thank you. Yes, in fact, I think I know that a large number of European lawyers are usually hired to represent clients before CAS. And why I think the reason that we can underline firstly is that the experience, and the experience in this kind of proceeding, because CAS code is not so particularly complicated. So we have 70 articles in CAS code, not very much. I mean, compared to any other procedural code, but CAS code has very specific provisions that we have to follow, and of course it's true that we have a few number of lawyers that always are representing clubs and players and federation before clubs, because they have maybe they have a quite huge database where they can pick the decision that they need, or maybe that they were part, they were advising former parts in other similar proceedings, so they have what we call the jurisprudence, and so this is true. But what I think about CAS proceedings is that they are not so different from any other arbitral procedure. And what we need, of course, is to educate, as Akshta was talking about. We have to teach, or we have to prepare a specific number of lawyers, maybe African lawyers, to represent their clients before CAS, because but it's not so impossible. I think that it's only a matter of time, but not so many times. We need to prepare, to educate lawyers to go before CAS, and it's at the moment we have just to remember the specific procedural issues that you can come across, and the way to solve, and the way, and there are other specific issues about the way to write an appeal, and the way to respect the deadline that you have to face, especially in appeal procedure, and the way you have to submit your. I think about the witnesses brief. You can choose, but you can also submit written witnesses. It's kind of complex word, but it's not so difficult to approach. Of course, being well prepared. So that's true.
Absolutely. I think you touched on an interesting point there, Francesco. Now, if we're frank, we have to demystify some of the elements of the Court of Arbitration for Sport. Yes, it's the highest sporting court in the world. Yes, it's somewhere far away in Switzerland, but CAS procedure is not rocket science.
No.
It's fairly straightforward, and I guess this is a benefit, particularly for those that are newcomers or are less experienced within the sports law sector. There is an ability to access that justice. However, there are specific peculiarities, if one can put it that way, in relation to the procedural code. And Francesco, you and I were discussing this the other day, and Achta, you and I also discussed a couple of points with regards to practice, that if one is not aware of these elements in reality, one can easily get caught up and end up losing a case or having their case thrown out, which of course is going to be of huge cost in terms of time and finance. So I think the main key here is trying to get someone that has an experience and an understanding of the sector, and you very poignantly put that forward, Francesco. And actually, if I almost put the same question to you, there's often a lack of appreciation of sports law throughout the whole continent. I'm sure you've heard it before, but when I've been over in East Africa giving talks or seminars, people come and ask me, what does a sports lawyer do? Does that mean you're a referee? That's the kind of comment one can expect to achieve, and that's not to suggest that there's a lack of intellectual ability. It's just simply a lack of sophistication to understanding how the sector has developed. And following from that, there often tends to be a chasm in quality between the practitioners that bring cases before CAF, FIFA, and CAS. So from your experiences at both FIFA and Confederation of African Football, what's your perspective on how African claimants can better represent themselves before the international bodies?
Thank you, Dev. Actually, I think that it's a global matter. I will start from how sports is seen in Africa. I think that we kind of not giving the importance of sports in Africa. This is where we're working towards, that people understand that sports can also be a really good business. Second, concerning the sports law and how it is understood in Africa, I think that not many people, as you said, Dev, not many people knows what is sports law. And remember, we met here in Egypt during the IIF conference, the Association of Football Lawyers, and we actually, for Africa, there were not so many lawyers, and we started discussing this topic. And currently, we're looking to aiming to create an association for the African sports lawyers, to identify them and to build a network.
Which would be excellent, actually, yeah.
Yes, we're working on that. I'll keep you updated. And for me, and I would just also come back to what Francesco said. It's a question of education. You have to start educating people. Of course, going to CAS currently for the rules of how CAS is functioning. For example, the fact that when you go to CAS for the rules are that the Swiss law will be applied, for example. If you have the means to have a lawyer, I would certainly not get a lawyer that doesn't know Swiss law. I will make sure my lawyer knows Swiss law, because Swiss law is going to be applied. So these are considerations that need to be taken. So within this education, either just go back to what you raised before, that I think that we need to rethink the whole process. It will take time, certainly, but you need to start somewhere. That we have to also see what is working, what's not working, and try to amend what's not really working. And I think that the system like it is right now, we can really make it better.
Excellent. And I think you said, Ajda, that you've got to start somewhere, and the great work that CAF is doing is certainly put down a stone upon which you can build upon. You referred to the conference that was the last time you and I physically met. I think it was a couple of years ago now.
2019.
2019. Well, it feels like a lot longer with what's happened in the world recently. But you made a very pertinent point, because it was a prominent conference in relation to football law that took place on the continent of Africa. And I think we probably had, 150 odd attendees, more or less. But the vast majority of those attendees were not of African birth or African origin. The vast majority were from Europe or South America. And now this is not a criticism in any way. I think it also shows that at the pinnacle of the sports law sector, those with more experience tend to be from Europe and South America. However, I was, like you, quite surprised that we didn't have more African practitioners there, at least those that were trying to enter the sector. So, I wish you all the best in your endeavors to set up your own membership group. And I'm sure that there will be some members in the audience today that would no doubt be interested in that. So do please keep us up to date with how that goes. We've had a number of questions flooding in already. I think we've got a question here which is threefold. I think some of it has already been answered, but just to reiterate, what if the dispute involves parties from outside of Europe? Would African parties seek resolution in Europe? And are there arbitrators outside in Africa, for example? Now, I think we've touched upon the fact that ultimately, when we do refer to the pinnacle of sporting justice, at the moment you are going to Lausanne, to the Court of Arbitration for Sport. But Francesco, I mean, what about yourself? Have you come across many CAS arbitrators who are from Africa?
No, to be honest, no. I met just another colleague from Morocco, but not so many. It's true that better. Starting from another point, it's true that we have CAS arbitrator, and so CAS appointed arbitrator from all over the world. So Africa, Oceania, Europe, but on the other side, it's true that the largest number of arbitrators are from Europe. It's a matter of fact. Maybe it is a matter of proximity to Lausanne, or of course, it's my personal opinion is we have to start where there is the largest concentration of interest, the largest, when you can find the largest number of interests that you have to discuss about. So it's not a story, it's not a fairy tale that Europe clubs at the moment are are dominating. So if I could say it so, but maybe the word is not so correct. But at the moment they are dominating the football scene, and so as a consequence, you have European lawyers, European arbitrators, maybe. But I remember what you said there. But it's on the other side, the other group, the other more representative group is from South America. But as you see, as you can touch with your hand, it's true that South America is the other part of the world where football is it's a founding part of the country, as I can say it so.
And it thrives economically. If we're fair, South American countries have got strong economic foundations for the sport of football, and in some instances better than many European, medium European countries. So it does make sense if we're about it.
But I remember the first time I spoke to our friend Brian. I said, from my point of view, it's incredible that Africa has a so big number of very good football players, and they do not have a very representative club, and they do not have so valuable structure that where you can rely on. So I'm very interested in what Akshat said because I understand the value of our work and our colleagues, because it's undoubtable that you have to build a structure, and then after the structure you can implement, you can increase the number of as you said, economic matters, and then I think they are strictly connected. I'm reading some of the comments that are coming in.
There's some interesting comments coming in.
Yes, I am reading that, but when I think it's not true that Europe is monopolizing arbitration. No, that's not the truth. I think that the system was created starting from an arbitral tribunal that was, as you said at the beginning, that was founded by the Samaranch. So CAS was created with a precise scope, with a name to create a tribunal where only sports-related dispute could
be heard. Yeah.
Could arrive. So, and on the other side, I don't know if our attendants know, but as you know, CAS is the seat of CAS is in Lausanne, but there is also a seat in New York, and there is a seat in Sydney. And then it's true that the parties can agree to have a specific seat wherever in the world. So of course, as Ashta said, you have to know Swiss law, because the law of the seat of the arbitral tribunal is Swiss law, so that it's impossible to avoid, and especially because the procedural issues are every procedural issue is based on Swiss law. So
and it's underpinned by the Swiss Federal Tribunal, which of course has enforcement power in any legal jurisdiction around the world. So it is something that is absolutely crucial, and it's difficult to avoid. You know, as the old saying goes, if you cut corners, then you're never going to get anywhere. So it's important to ensure that you don't cut corners when you go into a legal matter. I think the comment or the ideology of Europe monopolizing arbitration is one for another day in entirety. Maybe Brian, the founder and CEO of the Football Foundation for Africa, and of course consequently the Africa Football Business Show that we talk on today, would like to do that for Series 3. But there was something that was worth mentioning, and I touched upon it right at the start. Juan Antonio Samaranch in 1981 was the one that ideated CAS, and of course, Francesco, you referred to him just now. But let's put a bit of shine on Geba Mbaye. Geba Mbaye was the chair of the working group. Geba Mbaye oversaw the first set of statutes for the Court of Arbitration for Sport, and Geba Mbaye is a Senegalese, was a Senegalese judge. He was Africa's own in that sense. So one might think that there would be more inspiration for an increasing number of African sports arbitrators. Now, there are a few that I know very well, who, Francesco, you may not have come across. We've got in East Africa, Sharad Rao in Kenya. We've got Dr. Donald Rukare in Uganda, but the numbers are still quite small. So, Asta, if I may, I mean, what are your thoughts in terms of inspiring the next generation? I latched this onto a comment from the audience. One of the members of the audience has stated that the problem for some of the workshops is that the people who attend such trainings aren't the ones that necessarily apply the knowledge gained. So how can we select the right individuals to come and acquire this training, and then inspire them to be the next generation of African arbitrators at CAS or any other institution that might require them?
Thank you, Dev. I will reply in a general way. Today we are talking about not having African lawyers or African arbitrators chosen amongst the arbitrators in cases in front of CAS. Why are we talking about that? Because it's justice. And justice, you need at some point someone you need representation, first of all. And for the arbitrators, I have had many cases where I was in the panel, in the hearing, and then sometimes I feel that the panel is not really as close as the facts. I don't know how to express that, but they don't have like the subtleties of the context, general context. And I think also it's so easy to say it's Europe is controlling, etc. I think it's too easy. I know, for example, for our countries, not talking only about sports law, but talking about law, that many of the African countries, they are applying European laws. I would not cite any country, but I know that they're applying some European law as they were in 1950. So actually, if you develop yourself, if you understand how it works. Now we're talking about sports law. Sports law is something very, very recent in Africa. It's something very nice. We're talking, people are hearing for the first time the expression sports law, and we have young people that will be having diplomas and working into sports law. So what I will tell you is be strong. You have to understand what it is. If you can handle the system, you can ask whatever you want if you're developed enough. It's not always the other people's fault. So if today you have a sustainable program, why not having an antenna of CAS in Africa? I think this is a possibility. You can have hypotheses. You can create your own tribunals. Why not? But then what if you cannot handle the case? So the sport will be the one which will be harmed. Currently, you go to Lausanne, you have your hearings with arbitrators that know Swiss law. The system is working. It's not at everyone's benefit, but it's working. So if we in Africa can develop the system and we can do something that can work by itself, of course, you will have all the cases and everything can be handled in Africa. Concerning the African, the arbitrators from Africa, for me, I don't know, but personally, I don't think that they are not chosen because of something special. I feel that it's just as human beings, we always do something that we are, it's a habit and something that we know. So most of the time, people, in tasks, you have the list as Francesco talked about earlier. You have the list and you choose on the list for arbitrator. And many times you have arbitrators that nobody ever worked with. So the first level is the person knows Swiss law. Yeah. And if you don't consider the aspect of Swiss law and you want to choose someone, you want to know the person. Because, of course, you're a lawyer. You know how you choose the arbitrator. You choose someone that you know how he thinks and when you will present your argumentation, how he will receive it. So I think it's absolutely more this previsibility of who the person is. For CAF, and not to talk about what we did, we tried to have African arbitrators in our panels. Not many, because of course we needed to win some cases. It's a joke, but it's a bad one. Sorry.
No, but it's again, it shows how delicately poised we are at the moment, and I think what we're all discussing boils down to education. It's a layer cake system. First, we need to have the appropriate education so that people can understand what we are talking about. Then we need to have the governance structures in place, and we need to invite the culture to take that governance on. And with that, the sector can thrive and an economy can be built up. And when the economy starts to develop and it starts to move, disputes arise. And then we've got a dispute resolution mechanism that has a foundation to it. So as we said right from the outset, and Atsta, you and I have shared panels and discussed this before. We're not inclined to disagree with the idea of a regional center of CAS in Africa. However, let's make sure that it's underpinned so that when it does fully get up and running, it's not a house without a foundation. It's a house that's well built. And I think if we take that principle and we start going down to some of the member associations, how are you seeing the member associations in Africa with regards to their own internal dispute resolution mechanisms? Do you find that there are member associations in Africa within the scope of CAF that are doing things quite well, or do you feel that there's an increased need for education amongst a lot of them? I'm not asking you to name any particular countries.
Yeah, you know, okay. No, actually, I was thinking that it depends. It depends of which association we have. There are some that, of course, Africa is a huge continent, and we don't have this harmonized. Unfortunately, it depends of which association. But concerning dispute resolution, I think really that there is a need for further education. And actually, I think that it never stops. This you have to implement, and it's justice. So again, it's something that needs to work perfectly. And you have, for example, the regulation of CAF, FIFA, the principles, and the people that are coming into those NDRC. They need to know all these things. And they need to know. And now today we're talking about everything that is compliance, etc. So people need to know, and education is really the principal thing that we need to implement.
Excellent. I mean, if we're talking about education now, we've got a panel full of educational experience, an educatory experience with both yourself, Francesco, and yourself, Asta. So Francesco, if we use education as a running theme throughout this whole session, you are an educator. You sit as a professor both in Italy and abroad. What's your view on how sports law education has developed and how it's actually impacting the industry in practice? What's its live impact on dispute resolution mechanisms within football today?
No. Interesting question. Thank you. Because I was thinking about what Akta was saying, and my opinion is better. We have to start, I think, from what is sports law, because everyone is enthusiastic about sports law, because sport, you play football, and so you see, you imagine yourself with a football player. You imagine yourself that going to a stadium and with your client. So there is a frame. There is a frame of fantasy around sports. So obviously, always in my personal opinion, but on the contrary, sports law is, I think, is a very difficult issue. Is a very difficult topic to study, because sports law needs your knowledge of labor law, employment law, contractual law, commercial law. So you have a lot. You have this kind of big mix of issue that you have to bring in your case whenever you have one, because you never, personally, I never met a straightforward case. You always have a case with an aspect that to resolve that you have to know labor law, and another aspect that you have to know the principle of merger and acquisition. So I mean, we all remember the dispute between Manchester City and UEFA, no? I think that better than a lawyer, they would require an accountant. So because you know you have to put in action a lot of knowledge, and not always the same knowledge. This is what I'm trying to teach to my students whenever they study, because I'm not sure they are studying every day of their life, but I always recall their attention to what is sports law, because sports law is not so easy, and starting from this basic pronunciation, from this basic statement, we have to move, and we have to, as you said, Dev, we have to build the structure of the organization, increase the number of. I'm reading. Sorry, but I'm reading. While I'm talking, I'm reading the comments, and
you're a multitasker, Francesco.
Yeah, because I know. Yeah, we have a comment from Kenya, from Habitational Tribunals in Kenya. So that is a good thing, because I think what we are not said, what we didn't say today, is that CAS is the last tribunal where you can go, because before you should have a national arbitral tribunal where to go before, and then you can go to CAS, only then. And I think this is the path that we have to follow. And of course, coming back to your question, Deb, yes, education, the way of educating the students of sports law is, the essential is drawing their attention to what is a sports law.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll tell you, if I can just divert a little bit and go back to your penultimate point with regards to national dispute resolution tribunals. Now, Wycliffe, I'm working on a presumption, Wycliffe, that you are from Kenya, and if that is the case, then of course, Karibu. But you're referring to the sports dispute tribunal in Kenya. Now, Francesco, what you mentioned is that ideally you would want jurisdictions to have their own sports dispute tribunal or national sports dispute mechanism, or whatever it might be, with CAS being then the next point or the final point of call for appeal. However, there are dispute resolution mechanisms within football, within member associations around the world, where they are the final point of call. Like in England, for example, when we have an arbitral tribunal under Rule K of the Football Association's rules. The FA Rule K tribunal is the final point of call, and the only way you can appeal that would be to go to the courts of England and Wales, and that would be based on a procedural impropriety. A bit like if you were appealing a CAS decision or a decision of a CAS panel at the Swiss Federal Tribunal. So to implement something like that, whilst I think it's a really good idea, it's a bit of a challenge, because we would need every single member association to fall in line in a uniform way and ensure that if they do have a national dispute resolution mechanism, it still opens itself up to the mercy of CAS. In a practical sense, I think that might be quite difficult, or would you think otherwise, Francesco?
No, I think, as you said, that I think that we should we should find a good way to solve disputes in before national tribunals, and because is what we call there is an Italian word that I can translate to you, but I'm not sure that is okay. It was we call justice of proximity, because we have to start from this point and give to the parties the chance to have a local tribunal to where they can go where they can submit their dispute, and starting from them, maybe that the resolution that the parties will have from that tribunal would be, satisfying, and then maybe they're not necessarily going to CAS, and having said that, we can use CAS only for what it has been created is the international disputes. So the disputes between African player or African football player, African club, sorry, and European club or European. Leave CAS at an international level. So I think that this would be the key. Could be the key to.
That's another very again. You both yourself and Atsta are throwing out gems for the audience today. That's another very interesting point, because even us in our practice, we've had a number of inquiries over the years where we've had maybe a dispute between a player and a football club or whatever it might be. But the focus is on there being an international dimension. It's going to be highly unlikely that you can have a dispute between a Kenyan player and a Kenyan club, just for example, go directly to CAS, unless for whatever reason the parties involved have specifically drafted in express CAS clauses. So there are certain things that we've got to be considerate about here, and sometimes an injustice does take place, and the question comes along and it's put to us or it's put to another lawyer. We want to go to CAS, but you can only go to CAS if there are certain parameters there. If you don't have an express CAS clause in your contract, or if you're not party to a CAS clause by way of statutes or rules that you've signed up to, or you don't have an international dimension, then unfortunately you are confined to the national mechanisms within your own jurisdiction. So that's another good point to mention. And of course that leads on to education. Again, it's education all around. And Atsta, you yourself, you're also an educator. You educate on the FIFA executive course. You're a lecturer on postgraduate sports law courses. How do you feel about the focus of sports law education at member association level? And I'll ask a quite a pointed question now. Member associations tend to work on an electoral basis. So a president, he or she would come in, they would spend 3, 4, 5 years at the helm, and ultimately, like most electoral goals around the world, they have their short and medium term goals, whereas education tends to be seen as a medium to long term goal. Would you say that due to this inherent paradoxical nature of how electoral terms work, that long-term goals tend to go to the back of the priority list, and therefore there's a lack of interest and focus on sports law understanding? Or do you think that there has been a change in the uptake of sports law education in your time as a professor or as a lecturer?
Thank you, Deb, for the question. I think it's a challenge but it needs to be worked on. I explain myself. For the moment, it's certain that the major aspect is the electoral program, and so everything that is regulatory is somehow put aside. And I think it's a general point, because as I told you, even CAF, it's only 2018 that the division of legal affairs has been created. So can you will impact this to the MA? So I think that, and with the work that we have been doing, hopefully with time, the people will be more and more familiar with every legal sports law aspect of things. And hopefully, I think that once you are aware of something, and once you use it in every day, it becomes a habit. I take the occasion to talk to you also about the compliance that we have been doing. We just have prepared a compliance program for CAF, and this compliance program will be impacted also into our member association. So it's not only a habit of like concrete habits, it's also a new way of thinking we would like to transmit to our MAs. And I think for us, what will be really good will be that this will impact also on long term, like the subject that we have been talking about, CAS arbitrators. If we have African lawyers that are really comfortable with sports law, and I think at this point, when everything is okay with us here, then we will ask the question about CAS, if what to do. I'm sure that there will be a good solution for everyone.
Good. No, so it was a very timely comment that came in there from Humphrey in the audience about CAF and whether you could set up your own mechanism. And you know, you're doing wonderful things already. So you know, I think the whole continent is going to be grateful for the work you in particular, Achta, and your team are putting in, no doubt. But as you rightly said, it's structures and cultures. The structure would take several days to implement. The culture can take an entire generation to change. So it's the start of a long journey. Now, I'm very mindful of time. I'm quite conscious that we've had a number of different comments coming in. So thank you, members of the audience, for being so participative. Before we go on to a couple of questions and final wrap up, maybe an easy one for both Francesco and for Achta.
Sorry?
Maybe an easy question for Francesco and for yourself, Achta.
Okay.
For persons who are getting themselves involved in sports law practice, and of course we're focusing on African practitioners. Francesco, you will have seen as an arbitrator a number of different styles in terms of the written submissions and the oral arguments that are made in court. Are there any particular things that you think advocates should or should not do if they are representing African clubs or African stakeholders before the CAS?
How can I answer to your question? It's I could answer just simply saying that it's a matter of style, but it's not so. Of course, as we said all this during all this webinar, filing an appeal or anyway every submission to CAS requires a good knowledge, firstly, of the rules that you want to apply, and as a second point, it requires, of course, a good knowledge of the procedural issue that you can come through. How can I advise a colleague to file a claim? I think that the first thing, but it's quite. I'm answering quite. I think I'm not saying anything new to you and the audience. The first thing is to be concise. I really personally appreciate a concise submission and a clear submission, because the common wrong that I see, that I can read in the submissions.
Francesco?
I don't know if you are listening.
Sorry, Francesco, it seemed like there was a dip in the...
okay. Are you listening? Okay. I was... I think there was an interruption. So what I was saying to you is what I appreciate in the written submission is a concise submission, a clear submission, and a submission that goes strictly to the key points. There are some key points that you have to follow, and that is, I think that should be your track list. I know, sorry, but I don't know if it is my connection or.
I think the connection is starting to wane a little bit, and that may also be the internet gods saying that we three lawyers need to start wrapping up. But I think we got the key points.
Sorry.
To be concise. And interestingly enough, this was something that was mentioned to me when I was first starting to appear at the Court of Arbitration for Sport. In fact, a pointed comment was made about how English lawyers are not always the most welcomed because they tend to bring large bundles of documentation. And Achta, maybe you and I have got some experience in that sense. But in any case, I think concision is a very important point. This is arbitration. Try and be as clear and as succinct as you possibly can. Achta, from your own perspective, what do's and don'ts would you like to mention for those out there that have matters to raise at CAF level or at FIFA level?
Okay, thank you, Dev. For me, it's more about the way, the behavior that they should have. I would say that working in sports asks a lot of people. You have to implement what is outside in you. So really being, you don't play with integrity, for example. You have to be transparent. If you think that your client doesn't have chances to win the case, to tell him from the beginning that this is what it is, and not taking files that you think that are not good. I think being practical would be also a good thing. And most of everything, I think what can be really an advantage for a lawyer would be to be aware of all the changes into the regulations and statutes of all the football institution. I think that you can, being up to date will help.
Definitely being up to date with everything that's there. And again, you mentioned what would be good for a lawyer. Just to be absolutely clear, and for sake of completion, you do not have to be a lawyer to represent a client or a stakeholder before the Court of Arbitration for Sport. Of course, it would be of great help if you've got legal experience and legal competence, particularly with Swiss law. But you do not have to be a lawyer. Often clubs represent themselves by way of their CEO or their managing director. So it's important to know A, how the practice works, B, what the updated regulations and rules are, and C, to ensure that you're concise as much as you possibly can be with regards to your submissions. So no, thank you, Atsta. That's very, very helpful. I hope it will be very helpful for many of the people that are watching us today. Just maybe a final few words from your good selves. Francesco, you dropped off and then you came back almost at the right time because we haven't diverted topic, but just the final comments from yourselves. Francesco, dispute resolution in football. We've discussed a number of different matters here. We probably need several more hours to unpack all of it and go into real detail. But what would you say as a parting word to our audience today in relation to this topic?
So I'm sorry for the interruption, but now I come back. What can we say about sport dispute resolution? So I think that the basic thing that we don't have to forget is that football remains a sport. So we have to take care of football and not leave it too much to maybe commercial dispute or maybe employment dispute. I think that should be a way of conducting our daily work as an arbitrator or as a lawyer or as a director of legal department. We don't have to forget the role of football and the role that should be firstly a sport that educates people, that gives to people a chance to have refresh from daily worries, and that would be that should be, I think, the basic. Too many times we see we are looking at dispute of very, can I say, very speculating matters. No, so very so poor things, so poor issues that anyway parties want to bring before CAS. I mean, talking about. I remember one from Africa. Maybe Ashta remember it. The first case that I see from Africa was about a player that was where the club tried to terminate his employment agreement, saying that there was a poor condition and there was a poor performance. Well, that could be true. I don't know. Everyone can read the decision on the CAS website. But apart from that, from my point of view, the things the reason that you can bring a player before the CAS only because his performance is poor, I think we are talking about nonsense. I don't know if I can. I think we are not talking anymore of sport. That is the basic thing of sport. So
No, thank you. Thank you for your summary, Francesco. And again, another thing that you mentioned there, that CAS jurisprudence is available on the CAS website and is there for the public to be able to read and digest and understand and potentially utilize as and when they have situations that arise as well. So thank you very much for that, Francesco. We've got a comment here from Dia Salah, who's a very well-known individual within the Egyptian and the African sporting community. Thank you very much, Dia, for your attendance at the show, and of course, no doubt, Achta would be delighted at your reference to her and her good work with CAF and the workshops. Achta, what would you say as your final comments, if anything, in relation to dispute resolution within football?
Thank you, Dev. I will say something general before coming to the dispute resolution, if you allow me.
Please.
I just want to tell everyone that it's a new area, sports law and everything that we have been discussing about. Francesco earlier said that he's telling his students that it's very difficult. I will add, but it's really a passionate area. If you are ready to give 100% of yourself, you will enjoy. You will have fun. I mean, you have to be ready to work a lot. And being in football, also for me personally, it's I had to develop not only professionally but also personally. It's an area being here that you have a lot of stress because everyone is passionate. Everyone wants to win, and you will have these pressures from all coming from all parts. And but at the end of the day, it's something when you do it, you love what you're doing, so you will never work as they say. You're just enjoying and doing something that pleases you. Another aspect, which is for me the most important one, is that I'm working for developing Africa, and I'm so honored and I'm so proud every time I'm in a panel or presenting personally, because this is something that comes from within, and so just to tell people that for me, I really hope that within the 2-3 coming years, inshallah, that we can have young people coming into the domain, learning it, enjoying it, and that in few years, when we will talk about sports law, it will be something very usual, that there will be universities in Africa teaching sports law in all Africa. And that also, you know, the international aspect also, that you will be open to the world, not only to the sport, but to the world. It's very, very important. So this will be last word. Apart thanking Brian and everyone for having us today, and such a pleasure to have met Francesco. I look forward to discussing more with you, Francesco.
Oh.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much, Asta, for your final comments. And I think your final comments probably summarize my views in general and the views of many. We certainly hope that there will be more African practitioners that are coming up. And even today in the audience, I've seen some of the participants. We've seen a frequent attendee of these sessions, Emmanuel Obam from Kenya, who tends to appear on pretty much every webinar that you could think of. You know, there are people like Emmanuel out there who are ardently studying the area, and no doubt in the next 3, 4, 5 years will be up there representing clubs and member associations in a very strong manner. So we hope that the growth continues. Francesco, of course, we thank you very much for your attendance and your participation today, and for sharing all of your knowledge. And also, Achta, it's an honor to have been able to moderate the first female panelist, I understand, on the Africa Football Business Show. And no doubt one that is of high esteem. You're doing great work with the Confederation of African Football, so please keep it all up. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been my pleasure to host you and to moderate this panel for today. We thank the founder and CEO of Football Foundation for Africa, Brian Besala, and the entire team for all of the effort that they put into this show, not only for this episode, but for the entire year. Their tasks have been thankless tasks until this moment. We thank them and we make sure that they're recognized. We also thank all of the partners for the Africa Football Business Show. And those partners are OTB Africa, CBON Leadership Forum, and Unicaf. Great collaboration with Sports Legal, and for risk of sounding facetious, one of the partners is Palmer's, which is my own firm, so I shall thank myself. Finally, we leave on a solemn note, but I'm sure that everyone watching this across Africa and the world will be taking a moment just to remember the life of the dear departed Papa Bouba from Senegal, very recently, very fondly known as the Wardrobe during his time as a professional player in England, reached his early demise at the age of 42 only last week. So of course our hearts go out to him, his family, his loved ones, and the entire football fraternity. Thank you all for your attendance. And we wish you a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and look forward to seeing you in the next season.
Thank you, Dev. Thank you all.
Thank you.